Another news in the fight world is that Jake Paul has announced that he's going to fight again pretty soon, actually. March 2nd. So, within a month, that's great. I love fast turnarounds. Like, I always hate when fighters announce fights like months and months in advance. Like, I get it, you need like a good training camp, but UFC fighters, for example, they only need a training camp of like 8 weeks at max, right? That's 2 months, so that's doable, right? Obviously, Jake Paul has been in camp probably longer than that. Probably you start camp before you even announce the fight, right? That makes sense. But March 2nd, he's going to be fighting, bear with me here, Ryan Borland, some guy that unfortunately nobody, has ever heard of before. Unfortunately, not that famous. But I'll tell you what, I respect that from Jake Paul. I do respect that he is finally facing not known guys that could potentially end up in a loss, right? He is putting his record on the line, his pristine record that he so claims, let's face it, he's had a good record so far and he's faced a ton of big names. I just think that the hate and the backlash kind of comes from, and it came from me too, but it comes from skipping the line, right? How the fuck, and I think he realizes really, really late, but he realized it. How the fuck are you gonna call out Canelo, Mayweather, and bunch of pro fighters that are world champions, that are GOATs, and how are you gonna call them out and just not have any fights under your belt? You know what I mean? I mean, it works for some. It worked for Logan Paul. He got to fight Floyd Mayweather. Not a real fight though. It was an exhibition. That's the main difference here. That Logan Paul versus Mayweather was a complete exhibition, right? It was basically a televised pay-per-view sparring event. Is what it was. They sparred for a little bit. It was an exhibition. But Jake Paul, every time he's fought, there've been real fights and with a real record. So, we got the Nate Diaz, the Ben Askrens, you know what I mean? We got the most impressive one to me was Anderson Silva. Especially because Anderson Silva is a legit fucking boxer, bro. He's got legit fucking skills. Obviously, about 20 years later, though, I would have loved to see that fight, obviously Jake Paul is too young, but I'm just saying if Silva would have been about 10 years younger, I think that fight would have been a lot different, Silva, if he would have been a little bit more faster, a little bit more of like a fast reaction time. Prime Silva, guy was insane. Anyways, I do give props to Jake Paul for finally going in and kind of fighting these guys that are not known. Especially he fought the last guy, some dude named August something, forget his name, but like they're not known people. Now, I'm not gonna talk anything like that, but there's still the conspiracy that a lot of his fights are rigged, right? And if you wanna kinda play devil's advocate, it's easier to rig this type of fights than a Nate Diaz fight, right? Or a fucking Tyron Woodley fight, or a Anderson Silva fight. These fights will be way more easy to rig, especially because the guy you're fighting, well, obviously he's not set for life. He like some of these guys are. He's not extremely rich. He's not extremely well known. So if Jake Paul's team comes to them and they say, hey, take a dive, round 2, round 3, take a little dive, couple 5 milli vanilli, you know what I mean? 5 milli vanilli. And yeah, you'll be set. You will have that loss on your record, but I'm sure that fighting Jake Paul in any type of card anywhere would be a nice little payday. Not set you up for life. You're not fighting Mayweather here, but compared to fighting other unranked guys, like obviously it's a huge step up in purse and in the pay. So they take the pay increase, but then Jake Paul's team, what's stopping them from being like, hey, bro, take a quick little dive, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of, it's just kind of weird, bro. Like the last fight that Jake Paul won, it was his first round KO uppercut. And it just looked weird. The guy just looked like a fucking tuna can. You know what I mean? The guy just straight up took it. So it's different than Tyron Woodley. When Tyron Woodley, like he was actually out. Like he was actually, I think he got caught. And I was skeptical at first, but I think Tyron Woodley just sagged when he should have sagged. You know what I mean? We all say that. And I think he just got caught. I don't think that fight was rigged specifically. And like I said, it is harder to buy or to rig some of these bigger name guys, right? Again, because some of them are already pretty set for life. Well, not set for life, but, you know, compared to this dude, right? Like, obviously, they got way more money and way more fame and can probably get more deals anywhere outside of fighting. You probably, you know, get some TV going on, some movie going on. Who knows? I mean, it will be cool. But these fights, in my opinion, are way more easier to rig, right? Because these guys are not known. They have almost no money. I mean, they still in their early stages of fighting. You know what I mean? They're not even ranked, I think. However, I will say, if they are not rigged, then that is a fantastic thing for Jake Paul, that he's actually going out there and putting his record on the line against these nobodies, really. And he has everything to lose. These guys don't have a lot to lose. These guys, it'll just be a 1 on the record, right? A loss on the record. But for Jake Paul, it's like, ever since he started the career of boxing, you know, it's always been the same type of saying that people said, like, as soon as he loses a fight or gets knocked out, it's over, right? Which now, I don't think it's true. Now, just keep going. I mean, what separates him from any other prospect, unranked guy hustling out there? The only thing that separates him is the fame and the money, obviously, and the means to do it. He has access to, you know, better health, better doctors, you know what I mean, better recovery, better facilities, you know what I mean, that, you know, you don't have to worry about money. That's definitely a huge factor when you're going against another dude that might have some debt, you know what I mean? He might owe some money, you know what I mean? He needs to figure out how to pay rent for next month, you know what I mean? When you go against those guys, you definitely have some sort of advantage. Anyways, I appreciate Jake Paul for doing this, but he has everything to lose, because if he gets knocked out by one of these guys, it's not gonna look great, bro. And in his world of trolling and YouTube and, you know, fucking internet, in his world, that's the end of the world. That's detrimental. If the other guy loses, who cares? Just, it's another fight, bro. Many fighters arrive at the top of their career with, you know, a couple of losses in their career. I mean, if someone's undefeated, like Canelo, for example, he was completely undefeated. The only people he lost to was Floyd, and then he lost against the one when he moved up in weight class. I forget the dude's name, but those are the only 2 losses that come to mind. But even though those were a little bit later in his career, you know what I mean? You know, you look at someone like Tyson Fury, undefeated. So Floyd, undefeated. You know what I mean? So, but other than the outliers, you still have guys that are ranked probably top 5 that have maybe had world championships before, that have some losses in their career. So it's completely normal. In their world, it's completely normal to get a loss early on. All right, you know, get up and keep going. But for Jake Paul, in his world of YouTube and internet and trolling, that's tough, because now you can hold that against him. Now his next opponent talking shit can just say, yeah, you got knocked out by nobody, bro. What the fuck happened there? You know what I mean? So it's a lose-lose for Jake Paul, because it doesn't look good for him if he loses. But if he wins and he continues to, you know, well, hold on, let me back up a little bit. Sometimes I just lose my train of thought, but it's a lose-lose, because if he loses, it's terrible. If he beats this guy, it's like, all right, nobody cares, right? Where this pays dividends is in a couple of years, when he can come out and say, all right, now I want Canelo. Now I want, you know, someone that's top champion or top 2, top 3, right? That's when what he's doing right now pays dividends. And like I said, it's smart, and I appreciate that. And honestly, he should have done this shit 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? After, I will say, he fought Ben Askren, he fought Tyron Woodley, then he would have been like, all right, pause. Let me start a real professional boxing career, right? So like I said, he was a little late at it, but he's doing it. He's still young. He's still in his 20s, I think. So he could definitely do it. So this will definitely pay dividends when in a couple of years he goes back and says, look at my record. I'm undefeated 10, or, well, right now he has 1, but let's say he fights like 3-4 more times in a couple of years, right? He could say, look, I've defeated 5-6 guys, prospects, professional boxers, up and coming guys, and I'm still undefeated. Now I won a shot at a big dog, right? And that's when all this pays dividends, because right now he's not selling pay-per-view on these fights. You know what I mean? The only money he'll be making, bro, it's the gate. That's really it. Or partnerships and, advertising. That's the only money he's getting from one of these fights. He's not getting pay-per-view. And nobody's watching those fights. And even if they are, they're streaming them illegally. I mean, that's just a fact, bro. That's just a fact. So good for him for doing it. He's definitely taking a cut and a loss right now, but I know it will pay dividends. Whenever he has a solid record, he can go and challenge whoever he wants. And then people won't complain. Oh, why are you challenging Canelo? He's a world champ. Oh, wait. He's actually up next. Imagine we get to a point where Jake Paul is actually up next for a world championship. And boxing works a little bit different than MMA and UFC. This is a mainly UFC channel. But obviously fighting is fighting, so I talk about everything. It's a little different where, like, in UFC, we see more of, like, okay, the established rankings, right? Of, like, okay, with some exceptions, but most guys, they break in the top 15. They fight the 13th guy, then they fight the 11th guy, then they fight the 9th guy, then they fight the 7th guy, and they go up like that. With boxing, it's a little weird. Boxing, I don't know exactly what the structure is. I know they have rankings, but I don't know exactly what the structure is of, like, because I've seen fighters fight for world titles that I've never fucking heard in my life. You know what I mean? But also, I don't follow boxing as much, so that's, understandable. Maybe someone that does follow it more is able to see, yeah, I know who that guy is, right? Because right now, for example, and if you translate it to MMA, someone might be able to ask you, well, a couple of weeks ago, maybe not all people knew who Dricus du Plessis was, right? A couple of weeks ago, hardcore MMA fans knew him from defeating Robert Whittaker and from facing off against Izzy in the octagon after the fight, and then obviously now becoming champion, right? But a couple of weeks ago, you asked a casual in the streets, who's DDP? They're going to be like, what? What's that? Is that a dish? Is that a company? DDP? What's that stand for? So it's going back to boxing. I don't know who the number 2, 3 guy is in weight classes. I don't even know how many fucking weight classes there are. I just know bigger names, mainly heavyweights. I love the heavyweight division. That's the one that I've followed the most throughout the years. With Tyson and fucking Usyk and Joshua and Wilder, and now our boy Francis Ngannou representing the MMA community. So, I followed that aspect of it, and obviously growing up Mexican and shit, I always was a fan of Canelo. As a little kid, though, I always watched boxing, bro, always. But I never watched it like a hardcore. Like, I would watch big fights, mainly because my parents or my dad would have them on. But we always watched Canelo fights. We always watched Mayweather fights, Manny Pacquiao fights, Marquez fights, Julio Cesar Chavez fights. So we've seen bigger fights, or I've seen bigger fights. I just never been into the actual rankings of it and stuff like that. So it's a little tough. But going back to where I started, it would be fucking crazy, right, if Jake Paul in a couple of years is able to say, hey guys, look, now I have this record. I'm ready. I want a world champion, right? And it might happen sooner than later. I mean, it all depends honestly on how he feels. If he feels like he's done enough, then yeah, he'll call out Canelo and he'll make it official. I'll tell you what though, most people do this all the time. They talk all this shit on the internet, but they don't make it official, meaning they don't contact the other people's management. They don't send a contract. Jake Paul called out infinity people. He called out Conor. He called out Canelo. He called out Floyd. He called out their moms, their parents, their siblings, their neighbors, you know what I mean? But he never, I don't know if this for a fact, but I assume he just calls them out and he never initiates an agreement or a contract, right? Or he never contacts management. I could be wrong. But now he can do that. Now he can say, all right, I'm calling out Canelo. Boom. Here's a contract, right? Now he can totally do that. And the timing, honestly, is up to him, bro. It's his fucking world. And the rest of the fighters are just living in it, honestly. He decides, if he defeats this guy, he could say, all right, 2 fights is enough. Or he could say, you know what, let me get a couple more, right? And keep risking it for the biscuit. But, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. With the level of fame that he has, we've never seen anything like this in boxing. So we don't know how much leverage he has for a world title. Is 2 fights enough in professional? Is that it? You know, does he need 5? Does he need a couple more? Like, we just don't know. I think it's really up to him. I mean, whenever he gets bored of knocking out these dudes who nobody's ever fucking heard of in their lives, not even their mothers, that's when he'll say, all right, I'm done enough. Let me call out some big shot, big name, right? So yeah, you know, it's going to be exciting to see what happens. So follow up. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button. You know, every fight update that happens, I'll be here to tell you about it. So boxing, MMA, UFC, it don't matter. We cover it here. So peace.